Thank you, Peter. So just the final segment here of this event, and we are aware that you're standing up, so we won't tax you for too long, but we thought it'd be nice to have a bit of informal conversation with a couple of people who are, in their own right, leading policy thinkers, both with good connections to the school and indeed to Cambridge. So I'm going to invite them to join me on the stage. One is Professor Anna Vignoles, who is director of the Leverhulme Trust. Applaud away. As she takes a seat, I'll continue her introduction. Just to say that Anna was obviously was a senior colleague here at Cambridge for a number of years and played a really important role being on our management board, but also chairing it at a very important point in our development. So it's really apt that we have her. And we have Dr Gillian Tett, who is Provost of King's College, Cambridge, and as you well know, is one of the leading thinkers on a number of the issues that we will be talking about in our work to come. So, thank you both for joining me. I'm just going to put a couple of questions to you. First of all, just obviously we're here today to celebrate the launch of a new public policy school. Let's sort of think into the future a little bit. What are the biggest challenges that you think a new public policy school should be grabbing, that we should be trying to get involved with? Anna, why don't you start?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great privilege to be here, and it's particularly nice to see all the success you've had over the last 7 years, and congratulations on the school. It's a real moment. In answer to your question, I think you need to look back, and one thing I've always admired about Bennett is that you've taken the difficult path. And I remember the discussions in those early steering committees about what you would focus on and your pillars. And you've definitely taken a tricky path to understanding public policy. It's very easy, I think, for people who study public policy to go for interventions, to think about quick fixes, to think about, does this policy work, does that policy work? But what you've done is much more fundamental than that. You've asked basic questions about the governance of the UK. Is it fit for purpose? What does it mean about spatial inequalities, for low productivity, all these challenges that we face. And my strong belief is that we will not get the policy right until we've really got a decent understanding and some levers to pull on the governance and the politics. And you've integrated those things beautifully, I think. And that's sort of the answer to the question, what next? Trust is a key issue at the moment. It's an easy thing to say, but how do you research it? How do you fix it? These are big problems that we're facing. And I think also trying to get cross-academic and cross-party support for some of the fundamentals to improve is going to be vital if we look over the next 10, 20 years. And you have to do that with a really rigorous evidence base. And I think that's where the Bennett will come into its own, because you are extremely good at generating really sort of timely, excellent evidence that can really make a difference. So, yeah, those are the things I think you should continue to focus on.
Thank you. Gillian.
Well, I would answer slightly differently. In the last few days, I went back and read a lot about the founding charter of King's College. And back in 1441, when King Henry VI created King's, he wrote in the founding charter that he did that because he believed that Cambridge could be a haven for inquiry and reflection and calm debate as the world around it went mad with war. Quite literally, these were the eras of civil war. He actually said that when governments don't have wise counsel and people who have the space to reflect, they're like ships in a storm that go astray on the rocks. That's a pretty good description of where we are today, irrespective of what party you do or don't like. And what's very clear today is that 600 years later, we face a world which is plunging into the ghastly word polycrisis. We face a world where geopolitics is shifting rapidly, where technology is shifting rapidly. We have a climate crisis, we have a debt crisis, we have inequality crisis, we have misinformation crisis, and we have a crisis in trust. And the reality is that almost nobody trusts the government to fix it themselves, and almost no one trusts the private sector to fix it either. And they certainly, I can tell you, don't trust journalists an inch. So we desperately need as with King Henry VI, a space for calm, considered, grown-up reflection that's going to matter as the world around us goes mad. We can be a bastion of sanity. And there's two other things I'd like to say, which is why I'm so unbelievably excited by what you're creating here. It's so important. Firstly, as someone who spent much of the last 15 years in America, I can tell you this is not the perspective right now of the White House. You know, scholarship is under assault like never before. And the fact that Cambridge can stand up proudly and say, we believe in the value of the academy is so important on the world stage. Secondly, one of the things that really struck me when I came over from America to King's is that when I asked the students here what they want to do, and these are undergraduates after leaving, if you went to all the Ivy Leagues in America today and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? You might get 5% who say they want to go and work for the government. If you ask the students here, an astonishingly high proportion of them say they want to become civil servants. And you can say, well, that's because they are risk averse, or you can say, wow, one of the things that's fantastic about Britain today that we should celebrate is that we still have faith that the government can do stuff. We might blame it, but we're surrounded by students who want to go and work for the government. Hooray. So let's give them the tools to do that and celebrate it in an era when so much else is under attack.
Thank you, two really great answers there. I mean, let me pick up on, I think, a point of join between what you're both saying is about thinking about these students who might want to become civil servants, or indeed, there are people we educate who are already civil servants in different countries. Looking again to the future, what are the skills we need to be giving them for the world as it is now, not the world, say, in which I was educated, I won't say how many years ago, but some while ago. Looking to the future, what's the skill set, the capability we should be helping build? Do you understand?
So one of the reasons I was so delighted that the Bennett has become a school is because I used to teach on that master's degree that you're referring to. And the students are really rather awesome. They're incredibly challenging. They come at you from all different directions. They're interdisciplinary. Basic questions like, isn't capitalism broken? That's an easy one, but what about economics? What about politics? What about sociology? Incredibly engaging experience. But they were also deeply analytical, very smart. They were idealistic in the best sense of that word. And I think those are some of the qualities that we need. And I mean, one of the challenges I think we have at the moment, and I completely agree, what you've described is a polycrisis, if you want to call it. I know it's a dreadful term, but it does apply in this situation. The trouble with a polycrisis is that, especially for us, it permeates everything, and it makes people lack faith in the future. And I think one of the most important qualities that our students do have and need is optimism. You have to believe that you can make the world a better place. And that's not a naive view. That's a really vital part of this. Otherwise, we get into the cynicism that you see in many other walks of life in other countries, and that's a real challenge for us. So you need that optimism. You need to be forensically focused on evidence. There are so many policies that have incredibly good intentions that just don't work. Worse than that, they can actually be counterproductive. And we have to teach students that in a really, really rigorous way. And I mean, that's definitely what the Bennett will be particularly good at, so that they walk out with a really good set of skills and are never afraid to confront their idea with some actual data, which really does help when you're trying to make good choices. And then I think the final quality that you need at the moment is probably obvious to everybody in the room, and it's well talked about, but you need that courage and leadership piece, right? Because some of the things that we're going to have to do are going to be very difficult in the short term. So even if your intention is to make great policy in the long term, there's some costs up front. And we are really bad at expressing those costs in a way that makes people understand that we have to bear them for something that's going to happen in the future. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges. So the Bennett School is going to have generations of fantastic students who can come out and, as you say, who are keen to work in government and with government and indeed with the private sector to make it better, and equipping them with those skills is going to be absolutely vital.
Just following there, Gillian, just a final question to you. I mean, what do we need to do to make those courageous leaders of the future, particularly those who, as you say, are geared towards public service?
Well, I'd echo what she just said, which is basically what we need to teach kids, also students. They all look like kids to me anyway, so now I'm officially middle-aged. It's basically, skills with digitization, skills with silo busting, because they need to recognize the world's changing the whole time. Good communication skills, that's absolutely critical. I would say that as a journalist, but it actually really matters today. I'd say a growing recognition that life is not a career ladder anymore. It tends to be more like a jungle gym. You go up, swing around, go around the corner, and we should embrace that. It's really, really important. But the other thing I'd say, which is both for the benefit of the Institute, but also the people teaching them, is really a passion and recognition for the value of government. And just to give you another anecdote, I knew Paul Volcker, the former Fed chair, well. And shortly before he died, he summoned me to go and essentially have a final farewell chat. And he told me that a source of great sadness to him was that in his eyes, he had failed to do one critical thing. And it was that he had tried very hard in the other Cambridge to create a school that would teach civil servants practical skills about how to run things well. Yes, Harvard has a Harvard Kennedy School, but that's all pretty highfalutin. When it came to the actual practical realities of what it meant to lead and to govern well, he had desperately tried to fundraise for that institute over a number of years, and he couldn't get Americans, even wealthy American gazillionaires, to actually fund it. And he was heartbroken. And I wrote about that, actually. And he said, I just hope the next generation actually appreciates the value of educating its civil servants well. Some countries like Singapore do. At the moment, many don't. And as I say, for Cambridge, this is a remarkable opportunity, not just to stand up in Britain and say, you don't have to descend into the British habits of whinging and endless cynicism and eye rolls and assuming that everything's going to fail before you even start, and assuming that everything's a zero-sum game, and if one person's succeeding, someone else must be failing. It's actually okay to say we can actually collectively try and do better. And we need that in Britain desperately badly right now. We need to actually have a source of hope. But frankly, we can be a beacon on the world stage for the simple idea that yes, you can be a rational, grown-up leader who wants to make the world better. And by golly, is that a fantastic thing to champion right now.
Wow. I think that's a fantastic statement of a part of our mission, which we should have... I'm really aware that there are so many different directions in which we can take these answers and this conversation, where you're not all standing up, probably waiting for a drink. I would continue the conversation, but I suggest now that we give you the opportunity to chat, mingle, have a drink, and just remains for me, on behalf of myself and Diane, to just once again give a huge thanks to you all for coming and for all of the different kinds of contribution that you've made to our journey. It continues. We're starting to think about the future, and as you can see, there are challenges ahead, but there are huge opportunities ahead as well. So thank you both very much.